There are objects in this world that make no sense. Things pulled from the earth that shouldn't be there. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Leave a like to help us reach more truth seekers. And comment below with your location and the time you're watching. Because tonight, we're diving deep into artifacts that shouldn't exist. Objects that whisper of forgotten civilizations, lost knowledge, and maybe visitors from somewhere else entirely. Machines found in places where no machine should exist. Technologies discovered in layers of rock that predate human civilization by millions of years. These aren't theories or stories passed down through generations. They're real. They're sitting in museums, locked away in private collections, documented by scientists who can't explain them. And every single one of them challenges everything we think we know about our past. If you're ready to question what you've been taught about history, if you're curious about the impossible, then you're in the right place. In 1936, a couple named Max and Emma Hahn were walking along a creek bed near London, Texas, when they spotted something unusual, a piece of wood sticking out of a limestone rock. Not lying on top of it, not pressed against it, but actually embedded within the solid stone itself. They took it home, and when they finally cracked open the rock years later, they found something that should have been impossible. It was a hammer. Not just any hammer, but a perfectly crafted tool with a wooden handle and an iron head. The metal was pristine, showing no signs of rust or decay, despite being encased in stone. But here's the problem. The limestone surrounding it was dated to be over 100 million years old, the Cretaceous period, a time when dinosaurs roamed the earth and humans weren't even a distant possibility. The London hammer, as it became known, was examined by metallurgists who made another disturbing discovery. The iron head contained a composition that was almost impossible to achieve with modern technology. It was 96.6% iron, 2.6% chlorine, and 0.74% sulfur. No carbon. Modern steel always contains carbon because it's nearly impossible to remove during the smelting process. Yet here was a hammer with metal purity that exceeded anything we can produce today. Some skeptics argued that the hammer was dropped by a miner in the 1800s and somehow became encased in a calcium carbonate shell over time. But limestone doesn't form that quickly. The process takes thousands, often millions of years. And the rock layers around the hammer showed no signs of recent disturbance. Others suggested that the hammer fell into a limestone cave and was naturally cemented in place. But geological surveys of the area showed no such caves. The hammer was found in a solid limestone formation that had been undisturbed for eons. So we're left with a mystery. Either our understanding of geology is completely wrong, or this hammer was made by someone who existed long before humans were supposed to have the technology to create such refined metal. Someone who possessed knowledge we're only beginning to rediscover. The hammer now sits in a private collection, away from scientific scrutiny. Its owner refuses to allow destructive testing, claiming that previous examinations have already proven its authenticity. But the questions remain. Who made it? How did they achieve such pure metal composition? And why was it embedded in stone that predates human civilization? In 1936, the same year the London hammer was discovered, Chinese archaeologist Chipu Ti was exploring a series of caves in the Bayan-Karayula Mountains on the border between China and Tibet. What he found there would puzzle scientists for decades. The caves contained over 700 stone discs, each about 9 inches in diameter with a hole in the center, like massive stone records. But these weren't ordinary stones. Each disc was covered in tiny hieroglyphs, spiraling from the center to the edge in a pattern that seemed almost musical. The symbols were so small they could barely be seen with the naked eye, yet they covered every inch of the discs in perfect, precise lines. The discs were called the Dropa stones, after the local Dropa people who lived in the region. But the Dropa had no written language. They were nomadic herders who lived in simple dwellings and had no known history of advanced stone carving. Yet these discs displayed a level of craftsmanship that would challenge modern technology. Dr. Samam Nui, a Chinese scientist, spent years trying to decode the symbols. In 1962, he announced that he had translated the discs. According to his interpretation, they told an incredible story. The discs spoke of visitors from the stars who had crash landed in the mountains 12,000 years ago. These beings, unable to repair their spacecraft, had been forced to adapt to life on Earth. They had tried to make contact with the local humans, but were feared and hunted because of their appearance. The story seemed too fantastic to believe. But then scientists began examining the discs more closely. They found that the stones contained unusually high concentrations of cobalt and other metals. When tested with oscilloscopes, the discs produced electrical vibrations, as if they contained some kind of internal circuitry. One of the most puzzling aspects was the age of the discs. Carbon dating suggested they were between 10,000 and 12,000 years old, exactly matching the timeline described in the translations. But humans of that period were supposed to be primitive hunter-gatherers, not advanced stone carvers capable of creating such intricate works. The Chinese government quickly classified the research and removed the discs from public access. Dr. Sum Nui's translations were dismissed as fantasy, and he was reportedly forced to leave the country. The discs disappeared into storage, and official records of the discovery were sealed. But the mystery didn't end there. In 1974, Austrian engineer Ernst Wegerer claimed to have seen some of the discs in a Chinese museum. He managed to photograph several of them before being asked to leave. His photos showed the same spiral patterns, the same tiny hieroglyphs, the same impossible precision. Since then, various researchers have claimed to have found additional Dropa stones in private collections around the world. Some have been analyzed by independent laboratories, all confirming the unusual metal content and the electrical properties. Yet the scientific community remains divided. Are these authentic artifacts of an ancient advanced civilization, or are they elaborate hoaxes? The truth is, we may never know for certain. The original discs remain locked away, and the Chinese government has never officially acknowledged their existence. But the questions they raise are profound. If they're real, they suggest that our ancestors possess knowledge far beyond what we've given them credit for. And if the translations are accurate, they hint at contact with beings from beyond our world. In 1936, while working on the outskirts of Baghdad, Iraq, a railway worker made a discovery that would challenge everything we thought we knew about ancient technology. Buried in the ruins of what appeared to be a 2,000-year-old Parthian village, he found a collection of clay jars that looked ordinary at first glance. But when archaeologists examined them more closely, they realized these weren't just storage vessels. Each jar contained a copper cylinder, and inside that cylinder was an iron rod. The iron was held in place by an asphalt plug, and the entire assembly was corroded in a way that suggested it had been exposed to an acidic solution. To modern eyes, it looked unmistakably like a battery. A functioning electrical cell created 2,000 years before Alessandro Volta officially invented the battery in 1800. The Baghdad battery, as it became known, was examined by German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig, a curious German archaeologist who had no doubt about its purpose. He published his findings in 1940, arguing that the ancient Parthians were pioneers in harnessing electricity. Dot had discovered electricity and used it for electroplating gold onto silver objects. It was a revolutionary claim that the scientific community struggled to accept. To test the theory, researchers built replicas of the Baghdad battery using the same materials and methods available to ancient craftsmen. They filled the jars with acidic solutions like vinegar or wine, materials that would have been easily available 2,000 years ago. The results were undeniable. The replicas produced a steady electrical current of about 1.5 volts, enough to power small devices or create the electroplating effect Mig had suggested. But if the Parthians had electricity, why didn't they use it for other purposes? Where were the electrical devices, the lighting systems, the advanced machinery that such knowledge would have enabled? The answer might lie in the purpose of the batteries themselves. Some researchers believe the Baghdad batteries were used for religious purposes, creating electrical sensations that would have seemed magical to ancient people. Others suggest they were used for pain relief a primitive form of electrical therapy. The ancient Egyptians were known to use electric fish for medical treatments, so the concept of electrical healing wasn't entirely foreign to the ancient world. But the most intriguing possibility is that the batteries were used for something we haven't considered yet. Ancient texts from the region speak of objects that glow without fire, of metals that could be transformed through divine intervention, of priests who could channel the power of the gods through sacred objects. Could these references be describing electrical phenomena that we've dismissed as mythology? The Baghdad battery raises uncomfortable questions about the nature of ancient knowledge. If people living 2,000 years ago could create functional batteries, what other technologies might they have possessed? And if they had this knowledge, why was it lost? Was it deliberately hidden, or did it disappear along with the civilizations that created it? Archaeological evidence from around the world suggests that the Baghdad battery wasn't unique. Similar devices have been found in Egypt, dating back over 4,000 years. Ancient temples in India contain metal objects that show clear signs of electroplating. Even the famous Antikythera mechanism, a complex astronomical computer from ancient Greece, shows evidence of electrical corrosion patterns. Perhaps the most disturbing possibility is that our ancestors weren't primitive at all. Maybe they possessed technologies that we're only now beginning to understand. Maybe the Dark Ages weren't a period of ignorance, but a time when advanced knowledge was deliberately suppressed or lost through catastrophe. The Baghdad battery sits in a museum today, still producing electricity after 2,000 years. It's a silent testament to the ingenuity of people we've underestimated, and a reminder that history is far more complex than we've been taught. In 1927, British explorer F.A. Mitchell Hedges was excavating Mayan ruins in Belize when his adopted daughter Anna made a discovery that would haunt scientists for decades. Deep within the collapsed remains of a temple, she found a human skull carved from a single piece of crystal. But this wasn't just any crystal skull. It was a masterpiece of craftsmanship that defied explanation. The skull was anatomically perfect, carved with such precision that it looked like it had been created by a master surgeon who understood every detail of human anatomy. The jaw was separate and perfectly hinged, moving smoothly as if it were alive. The eye sockets were hollow and precisely shaped, and when light passed through them, the entire skull seemed to glow with an inner fire. But here's what made the Mitchell Hedges skull truly impossible. It showed no tool marks, none. Despite being carved from one of the hardest substances on Earth, the crystal showed no signs of abrasion, no scratches, no evidence of the cutting, grinding, or polishing that would have been necessary to create such a perfect sculpture. Modern crystal carvers estimate that creating such a skull with today's technology would take at least 300 years of continuous work. Even with diamond-tipped tools and computer-controlled machinery, achieving the precision of the Mitchell Hedges skull would be nearly impossible. Yet somehow, someone in pre-Columbian Mesoamerica had created using tools that officially didn't exist. The skull was examined by the Hewlett-Packard Computer Company in 1970, using the same equipment they used to test their most advanced electronic components. The results were shocking. The skull had been carved against the natural grain of the crystal, something that should have caused it to shatter during the carving process. Yet not only had it survived, but it showed no internal stress fractures, no signs of weakness. Even more puzzling was the skull's optical properties. The crystal had been carved in such a way that light entering through the eye sockets was channeled through the skull and emerged through the eye sockets, creating an effect that made the skull appear to glow from within. This wasn't accidental. It was engineered with an understanding of crystal optics that wouldn't be formally discovered until the 20th century. The Hewlett-Packard team concluded that the skull was impossible. According to their analysis, it could not have been created with any known ancient technology, and even modern methods would struggle to replicate it. Yet there it was, sitting in their laboratory, defying everything they thought they knew about the capabilities of ancient civilizations. But the Mitchell Hedges skull wasn't unique. Similar crystal skulls have been found in museums and private collections around the world. The British Museum has one, as does the Smithsonian Institution. Each one shows the same impossible precision, the same lack of tool marks, the same optical properties that seem to defy ancient capabilities. Some researchers have suggested that the skulls are modern forgeries, created in the 19th or 20th centuries using advanced techniques. But tests on the crystal itself tell a different story. The mineral inclusions and aging patterns in the crystal are consistent with ancient formation, not modern manufacture. Others have proposed more exotic explanations. Some believe the skulls were created by extraterrestrial visitors who possessed technology far beyond our own. Others suggest they were made by an advanced human civilization that existed before recorded history, a civilization that possessed knowledge we've lost. The skulls themselves seem to have unusual properties beyond their impossible craftsmanship. People who spend time around them report strange experiences, vivid dreams, electrical sensations, even visions of ancient events. Some researchers have detected unusual electromagnetic fields around the skulls, as if they were somehow storing and releasing energy. The Mitchell Hedges skull remains in private hands, carefully guarded and rarely displayed. Anna Mitchell Hedges, who found it as a teenager, spent her entire life studying it, claiming it held secrets that could change our understanding of human history. She died in 2007, taking many of those secrets with her. What makes the crystal skulls so significant isn't just their impossible craftsmanship, but what they represent. They suggest that our ancestors possessed knowledge and capabilities that we've drastically underestimated. They hint at technologies that we're only beginning to understand, and they raise questions about the true nature of human history. In 1974, aluminum workers in Romania were excavating a site near the town of Aiud when they made a discovery that would puzzle metallurgists for decades. 3 objects were found buried together in a layer of sediment that was approximately 20,000 years old. 2 of the objects were clearly mastodon bones, prehistoric elephant-like creatures that fit perfectly with the geological timeline. But the 3rd object was something that shouldn't have existed. It was a wedge-shaped piece of metal, about 8 inches long, 5 inches wide, and 3 inches thick. The surface was covered in a thick layer of oxidation, suggesting it had been buried for thousands of years. But when researchers analyzed the metal underneath, they found something impossible. It was made of aluminum. Here's why this was so shocking. Aluminum is one of the most abundant elements on Earth, but it never occurs naturally in pure form. It's always bound to other elements in complex compounds like bauxite ore. Extracting pure aluminum requires sophisticated technology, including electricity, high temperatures, and chemical processes that weren't developed until 1825. Large-scale aluminum production didn't begin until the 1880s. Yet here was a piece of pure aluminum, buried in sediment that was 20,000 years old, surrounded by mastodon bones that confirmed the ancient timeline. The implications were staggering. Either the dating was wrong, or someone had been smelting aluminum 20,000 years before humans supposedly developed the technology to do so. The Aiud object was examined by multiple laboratories, all confirming the same impossible results. The aluminum was 89% pure, with traces of copper, silicon, zinc, lead, and other elements that suggested had been deliberately alloyed, not naturally formed. The oxidation patterns were consistent with thousands of years of burial, not recent manufacture. Some skeptics suggested that the object was a piece of modern machinery that had somehow found its way into the archaeological layer. The sediment around it was undisturbed, and the fossilized mastodon bones were clearly ancient. There was no evidence of modern contamination or deliberate hoax. Others proposed that the object was a meteorite, a piece of space debris that had fallen to Earth in ancient times. But meteorites containing aluminum are extremely rare, and they don't show the deliberate shaping and tool marks that were visible on the Aiud object. The most unsettling possibility is that the object is exactly what it appears to be, a manufactured piece of aluminum created by someone who possessed advanced metallurgical knowledge 20,000 years ago. This would suggest that human civilization is far older than we've been taught, or that Earth was visited by beings who possess technologies we're only beginning to understand. The Iute object isn't the only impossible metal artifact that's been discovered. In 1885, a machinist in Austria found a small iron cube embedded in a chunk of coal that was millions of years old. In 1961, rockhounds in California discovered what appeared to be a spark plug encased in a geode that was over 500,000 years old. In 1968, a trilobite fossil from Utah was found with what looked like a human shoe print pressed into it, complete with stitching marks. Each of these discoveries challenges our understanding of history, technology, and the timeline of human development. They suggest that either our dating methods are fundamentally flawed, or that the story of human civilization is far more complex than we've been told. The Iute object now sits in the museum inclusion Napoca, Romania, labeled simply as Object of Unknown Origin. It's a testament to the limits of our knowledge and a reminder that the past still holds secrets we've yet to uncover. These artifacts exist. They've been photographed, tested, and examined by scientists who can't explain them. They sit in museums and private collections, challenging everything we think we know about human history, technology, and our place in the universe. Maybe our ancestors were far more advanced than we've given them credit for. Maybe civilizations have risen and fallen more times than we can imagine. Maybe we've been visited by beings from other worlds. Or maybe we're just scratching the surface of technologies that once existed and were lost. The truth is, we don't know. But that's what makes these mysteries so compelling. They remind us that history is not a closed book, that the past still holds secrets waiting to be discovered. If these impossible artifacts have stirred something in you, if they've made you question what you thought you knew about our world, then you're part of a growing community of truth seekers. Subscribe to join us on this journey into the unknown. Like this video to help us reach more curious minds. And comment below with your thoughts. What do you think these artifacts really are? Because the greatest discoveries often come from those brave enough to ask the questions that others won't. The impossible artifacts are waiting. The only question is, are you ready to see what they're trying to tell us?